Again, thank you all for coming out this evening, this great community event, highlighting your city. Again, I'd like for you to put your hands together for all God's children, Yates, and Gospel Ministry. We're really blessed to have such incredible talent in our city. And I'd also like you to put your hands together, give her a great round of applause for our Mistress of Ceremony and Event Coordinator, Miss Katisha Adams. Before we proceed with our presentations this evening, I want to acknowledge the members of the Benton Harbor City Commission. If I can have the house lights up, I want to acknowledge them for their commitment and dedication to our city. When your name is called, I'd like for you to stand if you're here. Mayor Pro Tem Sharon Henderson, Mr. Alex Adams, Mr. Tim Bowen, Commissioner Juanita Henry, Commissioner Dennis Holmes, Commissioner Marcus Mohammed, Commissioner David Shaw. I would also like to acknowledge Mr. Tony Saunders, our emergency manager for the police. As concerning the state of our city, before I address you tonight, I've asked 4 of our department heads to give you a brief report on their areas. And so tonight, I bring to you from our Department of Public Safety and Fire Division, Deputy Director Jeremy Kahn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for being here today. If we could please bring up the presentation. So, sorry to have to tell you this, but my presentation is not going to be nearly as entertaining as those acts that we just saw. Those acts were fantastic. So thanks again. Put your hands together. Unfortunately, I only have about 7 minutes, and then Mayor Hightower said he's going to reach up here with a hook and yank me off the stage. So I'm going to speak very briefly here. I'd like to start off with a definition of flashover and a brief description of this timeline up here that we're looking at. Now, a flashover is when a small fire becomes so intense and so hot that everything in the room bursts into flames at the exact same time. Now, this timeline up here shows us that from the time a fire starts until that flashover occurs, we have about 8 minutes. That's why it is so important that you have a fire escape plan for your home, and that's why it's so important that you get out as quickly as possible in the event of a fire. And I can't stress enough how important it is for us to teach our children that once you get out of a house fire or a structure fire, you never go back in. You get out and you stay out. Now this, it's our goal every time for us to beat this clock. We've got to beat that 8-minute mark. So we actually use this timeline in the fire service as a training benchmark. It helps us measure our effectiveness, and we actually develop training programs based on this timeline. For example, we will train our apparatus drivers to respond to the scene as quickly and as safely as possible. We will train our engineers and our equipment operators to set up and deploy our equipment within 4 minutes, all with the goal of beating this clock, beating that 8-minute mark. Now, over the years, our guys have gotten extremely good at this. Our department, or the city, has been providing police and fire services for over 100 years. And from the time that we actually had a fire engine that was drawn by horse, up until now, we've continued to train and meet and overcome all of the obstacles and challenges that we've been faced with. Today, we have modern, state-of-the-art, and compliant fire apparatus and equipment. And we have some of the best training in the area. In fact, if we look at our training hours this year over last year, we've increased our training by over 70%. And with that, or in that, we have hosted 2 major training events, multi-jurisdictional training events, in which we trained nearly 100 firefighters and PSO officers in operations such as life safety rescue and fire suppression. This training has allowed us to maintain compliance with MIOSHA and NFPA. MIOSHA and NFPA are 2 of the main bodies that govern firefighter safety and firefighter training and workplace safety. We now have over 42 responders that are trained to respond to police and fire emergencies, law enforcement and fire emergencies. We operate under this structure now. This is a typical public safety flowchart or command structure. Of those 42 responders that we have available, 31 of them are certified firefighters. They can all be used to help fill these critical roles that we need to fill on the fire ground. It wasn't that long ago when we only had 12 firefighters trained in the entire city. So now I'm not saying that we have 31 people available or on duty at all times, but what we have is a scalable response system or a modular system which allows us to call in additional resources as needed to mitigate any emergency that we're faced with. We call them in through pagers, radios, and telephones until we have enough responders on scene to accomplish our objective. When we look at our call volume this year compared to where we were last year, you'll see that we're down here. You'll see that we're down almost 50% in the emergency response calls that our fire division responds to. This is due to proactive police work, increased code enforcement activity, and increased fire prevention efforts. Now, when I talk about code enforcement, think about this. Our city has demolished approximately 300 structures over the past couple of years, and that has had a dramatic effect on the amount of fires that we respond to. When I talk about fire prevention, we need to think about our smoke detector program. Our department advocates a smoke detector giveaway program where anybody in our city that calls us, if we do not have a smoke detector, you can call us and we'll put you on the list and come out and actually install one in your home. This graph also gives you a good look at our response times, and we have improved our response times by nearly 2 minutes this year over where we were last year. And that's largely due to the PSO officers, or public safety officers, that we now have out on the streets responding to calls in squad cars. They can get there a lot quicker in a squad car than we can in a fire truck. Now what that does for us is it gets eyes on the scene, gets eyes on the incident, and they can begin to do an immediate size up, assess the situation, and they start calling in the resources that we're going to need to handle whatever it is that's going on, to extinguish the fire or whatever the event may be. When we look at or ask ourselves, how does Benton Harbor look compared to everybody else, we can look at some national comparisons here. And this is a slide based on a study done by NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, and they show that other communities comparable to Benton Harbor in population, they see on average a total of 65 fires in a year. 24 of those fires are typically structured fires. Okay? These are averages. Now, according to our data, last year we had 156 fires in our city. We had 75 structured fires in our city. That's a lot. That's 3 times the national average. But keep in mind, think back to the data that I just presented and the gains that we've made in reducing our call volume. We're going to continue to reduce those call volumes, and sooner rather than later, we're going to be at or below these national averages, and that's our goal. How are we going to get there? Well, we're going to continue to recruit experienced public safety officers and firefighters. We're going to continue to increase our training standards to meet and exceed national standards. We're going to continue to improve on our incident and public safety while maintaining MIOSHA compliance, and we're going to continue to provide or be proactive in our law enforcement and code enforcement operations. We're also going to focus we're going to put a lot of focus on maintaining our equipment so it operates safely and effectively and is cost effective, less costly to maintain. So in summary, or in closing, I would like you to keep this in mind when you go home today. We have greatly increased the number of responders that we have available. We have drastically reduced the number of fire-related calls that our fire division has to respond to. The city has demolished approximately 300 structures over the past few years, making us a safer city and a more attractive city. And we've improved our emergency response times by nearly 2 minutes. My name is Jeremy Connell. I've been in the fire service for 20 years. I've been with the City of Benton Harbor for 15 years. I am your Director of Fire Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. At this time, we have a presentation from your Department of Public Safety, Police Division. Please welcome Deputy Director Daniel McGinnis.
Good evening. Oh, that's loud. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to give honor to the Honorable Mayor, noble commissioners, citizens of Benton Harbor, and of course, the Sovereign Lord Jesus Christ. My name is Dan McGinnis. I'm the Deputy Director of Police Services. I'm at a slight disadvantage because I cannot see any of you guys. So I'm going to be talking in the dark. There we go, that helps. I got a very short time. I got about 7 minutes or so to give you about an hour and a half worth of information. The boss is watching, and his pep talk was, "Don't make me mad," so we will make sure that we don't make him upset. Amen. So moving on to my slide. One of the things I want to talk about, I don't want to throw numbers at you because numbers actually don't really mean anything if there's no context for that. So what I want to show you is what we're doing here at the police department now is going through a paradigm shift. And what I mean by that is changing the way we do police work. For many years we have been reactive instead of proactive. And I'll show you some numbers here that directly apply towards proactivity. When we see that when police departments are proactive, it's a level of crime control that brings crime down. One of the things that we're doing as far as the police department now is moving towards data-driven policing. Data-driven police work is simply looking at the data that's compiled and putting together police strategies to meet the data. For example, we might look at the data and say we might be high in burglaries in a certain area, or we might have a high occurrence of say, drug activity in a certain area. What we do is we take that data, and from that we're able to have put in place intelligent policing strategies. So those are some things that we're working on. I want to show you how quickly, I'll go through some numbers before I get into some other things I want to talk about, of how we're looking at data and how we can see and actually a causal relationship, I believe, between arrests versus calls for service and home invasions. Okay? One of the things here in the city of Benton Harbor, unfortunately, because we have an economically depressed community, we have a high incidence of home invasions. Home invasions is the fancy term for burglaries and break-ins. Somebody breaks into your house. We have a high occurrence of those, especially coming into this season, because we see going into Thanksgiving and Christmas, the new games are released, the newest models of televisions are released, so people go and break in houses to try to get these items. But I want to show you, there is a direct correlation, I believe, between, when we look at data, between arrests versus home invasions, for example. One thing I want to show you here is, what we did is, starting in July, when we changed our paradigm to be more proactive versus reactive, we see that our arrest counts went up dramatically. And what we see here is 2012, for the month of July, we had 132 arrests in July, 168 in August, 114 in September. Conversely, this year, we see 141. We started our strategy about the middle of the month. August, when we really hit them hard, 275 arrests. September, 235 arrests. We see, again, as I mentioned, high-level home invasions in our community. We look at the numbers for our fiscal year, 2012 and 2013, which was last year. We have 30 in July, 40 in August, 32 in September. What I didn't have time in my 7 minutes to extend out and show you is, as like I said, in this time, they go up. For October, it was 38. For November of 2012, it was 58. December was 59. January was 56. I think there's nobody in this room that would disagree that that is way, way, way too high. We value the privacy and the property of our residents, and we are looking diligently to get that under control to protect your property. We see as we start to affect more arrests, as we became more proactive and reactive, which again we started in July. Here we kind of peak out at July 39. Then August we see a 30% drop to 29. September we were down to 10 home invasions and burglaries for the whole month. Remember, the prior year was 32. Got it down to 7. So I believe that what it shows is a causal relationship. The more proactive that we are, the more we lessen the opportunity. One of the things when we look at crime prevention strategies is how do we lessen or decrease the opportunity for crime? Meaning, do we have areas where we don't patrol a lot? Are they dark areas? Are they overgrown brushes? Are there abandoned houses there where somebody could break into a house, take a television, take some games, hide them in a house, and those stolen things will be safe until they come back and get those things? Well, we have actually, we're searching abandoned houses now. There's one officer who found 5 stolen televisions in an abandoned house around the Colfax area. So if we get out of the car, be proactive, address certain things. I get calls from citizens and commissioners about drug activity, about loitering, about those things. Once we address those things, we're trying to push down the opportunity for crime and push down the occurrences. Next slide, please. Another thing that we see, you would think the more proactive that we are, the more calls for service that we get. Calls for service are basically whatever, when we get calls from the police for service, or if we do self-initiated things, those are what's called calls for service. And you see in July of 2012, we had 1388 for the month. August was 1295, September was 1096. Meaning we had 1,388 calls for police calls. Be it crowd fights, be it break-ins, be it barking dogs, whatever the case may be. What we see here in the same summer months, 2013, we have a dramatic decrease. 1213 in July, 1168 in August, and 1017 in September. So what I believe the data tells us is the more we're out doing, the more we're out being proactive, the more arrests that we're making. The city of Benton Harbor right now, last I checked, had 338 outstanding warrants for people's arrests. We got to clean those up. And when people understand that certain things are no longer acceptable, certain things are no longer going to be tolerated, one of the things I feel very strongly for is that we have some residents here in our city, 30, 40, 50, some of them 60-year residents. They actually deserve quality and peace of mind in their homes, in their neighborhoods. We are dedicated to making that happen. So we're seeing that the more active that we are, our calls for service go down, because now we've decreased the crowd fights in Broadway. We're pushing them out of Main Street from Levette all the way down to Monroe, and we're hitting them. So, now, please don't take that wrong. So, real quick, again, I'm trying to really give you a concentrated version of what we're trying to do. Again, I've talked about the data-driven police work. If you don't have data, it doesn't mean anything. And also, let me say that we have a 100% transparency. So if anybody FOIAs, records, reports, whatever, you will get it. Now, there's a process, depending on where a case may be, but we will give out anything because we think we can stand behind and we can prove what we're doing. One of the main things that I want to do is sit down and form a strategic plan on how can we serve the citizens of Benton Harbor better. That's first and foremost the #1 priority that we have. Now, we know that we've had some bumpy roads in the past. The past is the past. We are now moving forward. I stand behind my officers. I stand behind our firefighters. We have the best in the county, the best around, and we will get the job done. And you have a guarantee on that. I'll leave you with this. Again, I don't know if the time is going or not. But one of the programs that we're working on introducing is a program that we're putting together from the ground up but doesn't exist anywhere that I know of, at least in Benton County, is what we're going to be calling the Safe at Home program. What the Safe at Home program will be is that, is that the Pentecostal bell time to get off the stage? What Safe at Home is, what will be is, we will go into a person's home. My heart goes out to single mothers and to the elderly. I think that they deserve a level of protection because they are single mothers that doing the best they can. The elderly that have put their time in, they deserve us to protect them. And Deputy Director Connell spoke to some of the one of the programs as far as the smoke alarms. But we want to make sure that we'll come to your home. It's open to all citizens. We'll do an assessment of your house. How safe are you from a police perspective? For example, do you have something that might signal to a burglar out there that you could be a victim? And the 3 goals of the Safe at Home program are to, 1, reduce the likelihood of victimization for our citizens. 2 is to reduce the occurrence of fire in our homes, in our community. And thirdly, honestly, is to push our insurance rates down by having our residents safe and trying to make sure safety. So we'll come to your home, we'll do a police assessment. For example, I might come look outside of your home. Do you have shrubs underneath your windows? Shrubs help to be barriers for people to climb through your windows. Don't put your trash cans under your windows. It becomes a free ladder. We'll go inside, look at maybe your wiring. It's non-compulsory. There's nothing that you'll be written up for. There's nothing that we will cause you to have to pay any type of fine or assessment. But let me say this. If you happen to live in a rental home and you have a landlord and you made some complaints to the inspection department or to your landlord and we come in and do this inspection and we see that there's some things that could be increased for your safety, we will be reaching out and making contact with your landlord to make sure that you have what you need. So, I think my time's running out. I can't get into technology. There's a lot of stuff that we want to do. I think that we're going to have hopefully a forum ourselves for public safety alone to talk about more in depth some of the programs that we want. But again, I'll reiterate that the safety of our residents is ultimate, and we are now in the process of crafting strategies to make sure that we serve the Benton Harbor residents to the best of our ability. God bless you.
We're going to have your Department of Community and Economic Development Director, Ms. Nicole Rodden-Bowen. Again,
So my name is Nicole Rodden-Bowen, and I'm the Director for Community and Economic Development here at the City of Benton Harbor. So I want to start by just stating that the Community Development Department is primarily funded by grant funds. And right now, we are funded by our annual community development block grant funds. Benton Harbor is considered an entitlement community, and that is a designation by the Department of Housing and Urban Development that allows municipalities and counties to receive CDBG funds every year based on a formula without having to reapply. Now there's 2 formulas that HUD uses in order to allocate those funds to us. Formula A is based on poverty rate, population, and overcrowding. And Formula B is based on the age of our housing stock, the poverty rate, and growth lag. And HUD takes those formulas and calculates for all entitlement grantees and awards a larger amount. However, congressional appropriation has ultimate determination on program funding. Now, being an entitlement community also means we're not eligible for a lot of funds that you see displayed around the state. Those are state CDBG funds, and unfortunately we're unable to apply for those grants. So how do we do more with less? And what I mean is, if you look at the community development block grants that we've been awarded in the last 10 years, in 2004 we got over $700,000 through our department. In 2013 we received $440,000. Significant change. Not only that, but in the last couple of years we've been required to pay up to 25% of our funds towards defaulted Section 108 loans, which the city gave to businesses a few years ago. And so we're dealing with less. We're dealing with about $230,000 total a year to go towards activities that are eligible by CDBG. So for this year, when we look at what the recommendations that we make for our CDBG funds and for other grant funds, we look at outcomes, and that's what HUD likes to see. That's what other organizations like to see when they leverage and give funds to help with their projects. And so this year for our 2013 allocation, you can see that we've allocated towards public facility improvements and parks. When you put money into those types of projects, you're essentially affecting about 1,000 people in the city at least. We also have the code enforcement project. You can see that our Section 108 loan was kind of small. We had some leftover funds from 2012, so we were able to pay that amount down this year and use the money for other activities. And as our public safety director stated earlier, that our code enforcement has helped our citywide eliminating blight and things like that. And with the code enforcement program, we also have the minor rehab program. Some of you may already have known we've had over 100 people so far apply for the program, and we just had applications go out yesterday. But if you're interested, you can go in the hallway, we can sign you up for that program, and we're just doing some exterior code violation repairs. We also do a summer youth jobs program, and that's what you see, the public service recreation. And through those jobs, those youth provide recreational opportunities to the citizens here in Benton Harbor. So again, how are we able to stretch our money out to make better impacts? Well, for those of you who are familiar, in 2010 we received almost $14 million in Neighborhood Stabilization Program 2 grants. We were able to construct and rehab 30 homes, and I'm happy to say that as of today we've sold 25, which is great because a lot of people didn't think we could sell in homes. Again, as the public safety stated, we've done almost 300 demolitions since 2010. And then we see a lot of new businesses. For those of you who go downtown, you see the new Bread Bar on Riverview Drive. You see Lark's Barbecue. They've been here forever, but they look like a brand new place today. We also have the new Chemical Bank building, the Saranac Flats building, our new Whirlpool Global Headquarters, Trailside Development, Boys and Girls Club Teen Center, and the Kidney Dialysis Center, just to name a few of the developments that are happening in the city. Then we also look at community development. Yesterday we held a citywide cleanup with the Downtown Development Authority, and we also had over 300 volunteers from Andrews University come to our city and help with the cleanup, so we definitely appreciate it. And this is something that as a department we'd like to continue to do quarterly as we try to encourage our citizens to go out, even if you're cleaning up your own yard or helping an elderly neighbor to take out the leaves, things like that. Again, we try to leverage other resources, and with that we have the state-led program who came in and said, we have some funds available for people who have children under 6 with lead poisoning in their home. Can you help us promote this to City of Benton Harbor residents? And of course we said yes, so we're working with the state-led program on that program as well. We have our urban gardening initiative. We've identified 4 sites, 1 in each ward, and we have sign-up sheets outside if you're interested in getting involved with that program. Now we'll talk about parks and recreation. First, I want to talk about Union Park improvements. With our CDBG funds, we are allocating some funds towards Union Park. The majority of our funds, we're waiting from the Department of Natural Resources for them to grant us some dollars for Union Park. You can see the rendering here on the screen. A lot of it is all new baseball fields, new concession stand, new restrooms, will be ADA accessible. It's going to be a brand new park for our residents. So also this summer, a nonprofit organization was formed known as the Benton Harbor Parks and Recreation Conservancy. So parks are extremely important to economic revitalization, neighborhood revitalization, increased property values, and improved quality of life, including less crime and better health. And the city realized this, and we realized the importance of our parks here. But we also knew that financially it was hard for us to sufficiently support those parks. So a group of our local stakeholders created a nonprofit that helps us manage these parks while the city still owns the land. This nonprofit is able to improve opportunities for local partnerships, and it also allows us to gain access to resources and funding otherwise not available to us at the city. So residents and others who are interested in supporting the parks can now donate time or money to our Parks Conservancy. So what's next for the Community and Economic Development Department? Well, of course, we're constantly pursuing grants to help better the quality of life with our residents. We're hoping that some additional neighborhood stabilization program grant funds will become available this fall to do some more blight elimination and new construction. We're also partnering with the Southwest Michigan Planning Commission and the DDA and the City of St. Joe for placemaking, in which Benton Harbor is leading the way on. We're working on the Redevelopment Ready Communities Initiative through the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. We're also working on our Benton Harbor Farmers Market with help from the United States Department of Agriculture. And we're working with the Berrien County Health Department, MSU Extension, Michigan Farmers Market Association, MSU Center for Regional Food Systems, and Michigan Food Hub Network, just to name a few. So in order to face some of our issues of economic instability, health disparities, and social sustainability, this project, we believe, will not only provide permanent location to access fresh food locally, but it will also provide entrepreneurial opportunities for small businesses and local residents. So access to this infrastructure for the farmers market will open up tremendous opportunities for our local economy. We're also working on, again, collaborating with citizens to build our neighborhood associations and our block clubs. So we're asking, we'll be reaching out to existing organizations, but we're also asking other residents to get involved. If you'd like to start a block club, our department will be here to serve as technical assistance providers to help you make that happen. And we have sign-up sheets outside for that. And then again, to continue to encourage citizen participation with the department, where our funds are going, what types of projects we'd like to see in the neighborhood. We're making improvements to our websites. We also have comment cards for citizens who would just, if you have ideas, that you can come in and submit to us. So that's it. So thank you very much.
At this time, very important piece. From your Department of Finance, Director, Ms. Jody Lundquist.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, and thank you to all of you for coming out tonight. It's my pleasure to be here and to speak with you about the state of the city's finances. My department isn't nearly as exciting as the public safety, as shown by Deputy Director McInnes and Deputy Director Connell, but the state of this city, at least its finances, is stronger than it has been in years. And the best, or one of the easiest ways to display that is by the cash on hand. The city's cash accounts are stronger, as you can see on the far right side, than they were in March of 2010. In March of 2010, the city had negative cash balances across its bank accounts and was facing a payless payday for city employees. Thankfully, the state stepped in and advanced state revenue sharing, and it was able to eke by until it was then levied its summer taxes. As you can see at the peaks here, those are each September. The city relies predominantly on the property tax revenue that it receives from its summer taxes to support the operations of the city. In the middle, you can see these valleys, and having received the majority of its revenue in or by September each year, the city's cash on hand continues to deplete. The city, through both seeking other sources of revenue, but also reducing costs, has managed to continue to build this baseline so that at any given time we have more cash on hand. In fact, as of September 30, of just this past month, we had over $5 million in the bank. That was all funds. Of that $5 million, $1.8 million was being held for distribution to other taxing authorities, $1 million belonged to the water fund, $16,000 was held in fire escrow, and over $2 million was specifically for the use and benefit of general fund operations. As you can see, the city's general fund revenues are higher this year significantly higher this year than last year. The dip that you see in 2013, which is the fiscal year that just concluded, is largely due to the failed millage that that did not pass on the November 2012 ballot. So thank you all for your yes vote to move Benton Harbor forward in May, because indeed it did move Benton Harbor forward and we continue to gain strength. So, of our total budgeted revenue, 33%, as I said, is a direct result of the property tax revenue that we receive from the city's residents. 24% we receive as a result of state revenue sharing, that's sales tax that the state receives and then distributes to local municipalities for unrestricted general fund use. Another 7% the city receives from pilots. Those are payments in lieu of taxes that the city receives from subsidized housing in Benton Harbor. The 11% that's shown, although a large piece of the pie is actually internal bookkeeping, those are reimbursements to general fund for expenses it pays on behalf of other operating funds. While revenues have increased from prior years, the city has been working diligently to cut costs and improve efficiencies while maintaining city services, so that in 2014 we will have reduced expenses from 2010 by nearly $600,000. And from last year alone, we have reduced expenses by approximately $260,000. Of our total budgeted expenditures, Jimmy and Dan make up 31%. So our public safety department is the largest portion of the city's general fund operating budget. That's the portion of our budget that goes directly to keep our streets safe. 25% is for general administration. Those are the expenses that benefit all of the city's departments, for instance, our legal and property and casualty insurance, as well as our utility bills. And they keep not only the lights on at City Hall, but they keep the lights on our streets and at the stoplights. 13%, the blue piece here, is directly budgeted to be contributed this year on a monthly basis to our pension fund. So that will go directly towards the general fund and police and fire pension funds. And the final 13% that's shown is our Department of Public Works budget. And while only 13% of the general fund budget is shown to go towards the Department of Public Works, our streets are also maintained and budgeted for nearly $800,000 from major and local street funds. Aside from the major and local street funds and community development, which Nicole has reported on, we have the water services. And as you can see, there's been a dramatic decrease in revenues over the past 4 years. Largely, again, as you've seen, due to the decrease in customers, the loss of Benton Township, Sodus Township, Haggard Township, and most recently St. Joe Township. In line with the decrease in revenue, the city has been working to maintain services while decreasing costs. But what's significant to note is that while our costs have decreased, we have relatively fixed costs when it comes to making our water plant bond payments. That water bond payment makes up almost a quarter of the total water fund budget, or 24%. So while that goes to repay the renovations for the water treatment plant, we also have 17% of the budget for the actual operating costs of the water treatment, 18% for distribution, 14% for sewer and lift stations, and similar to the general fund general admin expenses, the water fund general admin also benefits all of the other departments. Since I'm just the bean counter, I'm not nearly as exciting as putting out fires or saving kittens, but we did just complete our city's audit, and I received yesterday draft financial statements, so I am very happy to report that not only has the city been working hard in the finance department to improve processes and procedures and implement tighter internal controls, reducing the number of audit findings that will be reported, despite a projected deficit, or projected operating deficit for the last fiscal year, we in fact had an operating surplus, so that we will have reduced the accumulated general fund deficit by over $1 million.
Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge all of our city staff here tonight for the job that they do in running and maintaining our city. Put your hands together for them. As I always say, and what I've been taught in terms of having a reliable system, you have to have deference for expert. And that means what you don't know, you have to rely on those that truly know and are able to do it. And I appreciate having experts. This is my first day of the city address since becoming mayor. Some have asked, why now? And my answer has been, why not now? The city has been under state emergency management for 3.5 years. 3 weeks from today, our residents will head to the polls to make some very serious choices as it relates to their finances. And in less than 3 months, the emergency manager will exit, and the Benton Harbor City Commission will regain control of city business. As mayor of the city of Benton Harbor, in my judgment, the timing tonight could not be more right to share information that's being given to our Benton Harbor residents. There are a lot of voices out there, many giving wrong or misinformation about a lot of things concerning the city, especially as it relates to the city's current financial standing. And as have you seen tonight, what was reported, we are not on the verge of bankruptcy. But in fact, we have turned the corner and are heading in the right direction. And that's mainly due to the property and homeowners of this city who approved a much-needed tax millage back in May. When it has been necessary and truly needed, the citizens of this city has always stepped up. And I have to give credit, we must give credit to Mr. Saunders and the work that he's done here since February. We came in February of this year, it was projected that the deficit would actually grow from 2.2 million fiscal years in 2012 to 2.7 million by June of this year. But through his efforts of acquiring reductions from vendors, challenging debts, reduction of non-essential staff, and reducing benefits, the deficit now sits at 1.2 million. $1 million in a span of 7 months. And even with this reduction, we put more officers on the streets. Along those lines, I'd like to come to his defense tonight and say the allegations associated with the recent lawsuit filed against Mr. Saunders in the city of Benton Harbor are unfounded and have no merit. Our police department, when he got here, was top-heavy with administration. And downsizing was recommended, warranted, and necessary. And as shown in the presentation, the additional officers on the streets are making a difference. On another note regarding financials, municipalities and school systems all over the state and country are working diligently to get a handle on underfunded pension contributions. It has been estimated that if the city of Benton Harbor stops making contributions today, the benefits for our retirees would run out in 3 years. It cannot be overstated enough that the adopted budget that Mr. Saunders has put in place for the pension must be adhered to by the commission and new city manager. If we continue to fund as currently budgeted, we'll be fine. The current employees really have to be commended because they gave up over $600,000 a year in benefits to ensure future pensions would be funded. Put your hands together. This brings me to my next topic, which is the transition to local control. This concerns many because they wonder how will things evolve. After seeing March 2010 and where we were before the state came in, will we go back to the same practices? Well, as it relates to local control, as I mentioned, the City Commission could be back in control of city affairs by January 14. But there's something that must take place. Number one, the hiring of a city manager. There's been a search in place for a few months, and we currently have 35 applicants. Don't tell me people don't want to come to the job. We have 35 applicants. 4 of them are from Michigan. The rest are from across the country. Interviews will begin shortly. Number 2, the Benton Harbor City Commission will have to go through specific mandatory training sessions. Those sessions will include history and the basics of public service, structure of government, roles and responsibilities of elected officials, parliamentary procedure, local government finance and budgeting. These sessions will begin right after the November election. These sessions will be both classroom and online. Number 3, as it relates to this transition, the governor of Michigan will appoint a transition advisory board. This board will have veto power over the commission. This board cannot initiate any processes, but it must approve all decisions made by the commission, including hiring and firing of key personnel. How long will this transition board be in place? We have no idea. It will be in place until the governor feels that our city is being ran appropriately. I'd like to briefly touch on what is currently happening with some of our city properties. We're working with the federal government on selling the federal building. The purchaser plans to invest $8 to $11 million for commercial and residential space. But currently we're in a holding pattern since the government has shut down. That's a problem. The Armory, I want to squash all rumors. The Armory is not for sale. And it will never be for sale. Right now, the Conservancy is working on raising funds to open it again as a community center for our city residents. We need a large venue besides the college or to go out some other place. We need something within our city that is nice, that we can have functions in. On the subject of our streets, a strategic plan will be developed to address repair and general maintenance. Lord knows our streets are in bad shape. And that's been from years of not really planning. It's been from years of not really paying attention. And then saying, well, we have to spend money on this, so I can't spend the money on that. But you have to make a concerted effort to do what's necessary to take care of your roads and maintain them. As we all know, if you take care of something, it lasts longer. We're seeking grant funds. We applied for the Stormwater Asset Management and Wastewater Grant, which will be used not only to repair drain systems, but you know, if you tear up the street to get to the drain, when you fix the drain, you have to fix the street. And so we will have some new streets in the city of Benton Harbor. Also, something else. A management agreement is not out of the question to accomplish this. And what I mean by that is, I just said we have to have deference for expert. And when it comes to managing and putting together a plan, if we don't have the necessary individuals in-house, then we need to consult and come into a management agreement. There's so many, I hear it so often where it's said that when we contract a management agreement, you're giving away everything. You've given away something. Just like when we just recently did the management agreement for our cemeteries. Well, I'll tell you today, the cemetery looks a whole lot better in such a short period of time by doing this management agreement. We have to do what's necessary for our community and our citizens. And if it takes doing a management agreement, let's have deference for expert and do what's necessary. Well, I have a very touchy subject. This is a hot topic, the water. I know y'all thought I was going to say the income tax. But the water, we just reduced rates by 5%. And I can safely tell you tonight, and I say safely, at this point there will be no increase. And if things go well, there may be another decrease before the end of the year. We can't say how much that will be, but Mr. Saunders, Ms. Lundquist are working very diligently to help see that happen. And then also, you have to pay your bill. At one point, our collection rate was only 40%. Now, you know the gas company wouldn't be having that. Or the electric company, they wouldn't have that. We've covered a lot of information tonight. And I hope it's been helpful for you in giving you a greater understanding on the current state of our city. In my closing, I want to say, we have the power to create the future. Decisions determine destiny. Decisions that we make today ultimately shape our future. We have to make right decisions. And we have to make those decisions based on having the right heart for what we've been elected to do. We have the power to overcome difficulties, the difficulties of economic and budgeting pressures without overtaxing residents. We must have the courage to use the power to work together. It takes courage to work together. Many of the issues that we have, the one being the water, as you see, as you saw on that slide, where we lost customers. Well, it stands to reason, if you don't have the ability to work with one another in your own house, how will you be able to have the ability to work with others on the outside? And as a result, those communities chose to do what was best for their community. On the first week in office as mayor, we had a CEO meeting. That's where all of the municipalities' leaders meet once a month. And I understood that St. Joe Township was thinking about pulling out. And after that meeting, I met with those officials and I literally begged them, please give us a chance to work this out. This is when we had other officials saying, let them go, let them go. But what I was told was this. They said, we believe that you would do the right thing, but we don't know if everybody else will. And we have to do what's necessary to protect the residents of St. Joseph Township. And so they spent $2 million putting in a pipe, crossing the river. I watched them do it out of my window, and every day I saw them working on it. I became sick looking at it because I understood that that was going to affect the residents of our city. We have to do better. We must have the courage to use the power to work together with a common goal in mind. Our charge is to build Benton Harbor, not newspaper sales or TV ratings, but rebuild a thriving city where more families choose to live. A place where our children find educational opportunities, where neighbors live in safety without abandoned blight, where businesses make new investments, creating jobs for our people. That takes a stable government, a group of people who can disagree without being disagreeable, maintain the focus of why you were elected, to serve the people, ensuring that they are safe, with efficient and quality services at reasonable cost. And as we head toward local control, I speak to the commission. I commit. I'm committing. I have been no confidence, boycotted, censored, cussed out. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that I took this position to see some results. And that's for the people that I have lived with, that I live with, the people that I speak with. I commit. Let us recommit ourselves to conquer the challenges ahead. Put aside personal differences and agendas and work as a unit for a better Benton Harbor. Your city, our city. God bless you all and thank you for coming out today.